Good day, everyone. I'm David, the moderator for this webinar. I welcome everyone for today's webinar, which is Legal Disputes Involving Students with Autism 2024 Update. I would now like to introduce our presenter for today, Hope and Kirsch. Hope and Kirsch, MA, ESQ, is a licensed special education teacher and 25-year plus liquidation attorney. Ms. Kirch was a special education teacher and special education coordinator in the New York City Public School for 18 years. She has a bachelor's degree in special education from Boston University, cum laude, a master's degree in special education from NYU, 30 plus postgraduate credits in educational supervision and administration. I would now like to hand over the floor to the speaker. Over to you, Hope.
Thank you. Good morning or good afternoon. We're going to be talking today about what is autism spectrum disorder, or ASD, medical diagnosis versus educational eligibility. Okay, they don't necessarily go hand in hand. Identifying and evaluating students with ASD, the laws pertaining to special education, IEPs, bullying and harassment, when the bully is student with autism, and when the bullied is when the victim is a student with autism, and how to resolve disputes, because that is, after all, what we want to do for the teachers and educators out there. So what is autism spectrum disorder? So just basically, it's a neurodevelopmental disorder. And so they alter the child's development. And those disorders are characterized by developmental deficits that produce impairments of personal, social, academic, and or occupational functioning. 2021, the Centers for Disease Control reported that approximately 1 in 44 children in the U.S. is diagnosed with an autism spectrum disorder. 1 in 27 boys is identified with autism. 1 in 116 girls is identified with autism. So that means that boys are 4 times more likely to be diagnosed with autism than girls. So now we're going to discuss that there is no medical test for medical diagnosis. That, a parent might get one from a developmental pediatrician. How is autism diagnosed in the medical community? Doctors and psychologists use a classification system of mental disorders, and they are associated with criteria that are designed to facilitate reliable diagnoses. And the system is compiled in the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders, or DSM. And that the DSM is published by the American Psychiatric Association, the APA, and it's updated every so often. So the current one is DSM-5, and that stands for the 5th edition, current as of 2013, so not too current. The DSM, autism is found in the DSM in the class of neurodevelopmental disorders, which includes intellectual disability, repetitive behaviors, interests, and activities, which is the other component of ASD. And so the term autism actually didn't appear by itself in the DSM-4. And autism spectrum disorder is characterized by 2 core domains: deficits in social communication and interaction, that pragmatic, that talking back and forth, and then also restricted repetitive behaviors. You have category A, and that is the persistent deficits in social communication and social interaction. So there are severity levels, and this is what explains the spectrum. Okay, and then category B is the restricted repetitive patterns of behavior, interests, or activities. And again, you have the severity levels for these, from requiring support to requiring very substantial support. Now, educational eligibility. Autism is not defined in the IDEA. That's the U.S. code. And so an example of a state statute, here's the challenge of proving the need for special education, because the only way a child is going to qualify for an IEP is if they need specialized, specially designed instruction. And this is more for the parents in the audience. So again, how do you prove need? You need special ed parents, and again, this is usually because the parents want the autism label, that the child needs a special education service to access the curriculum. And so I've been talking about specially designed instruction. What is that? That means adapting as appropriate to the student's needs. So how are students with autism identified and evaluated? What does it mean to identify a child? What triggers an evaluation? There could be child find or parent request. So here's the sequence. Okay, so how schools evaluate, again, because there's no medical test, blood test, MRI, or a chromosome anomaly, they're basically using subjective information. Schools should ensure that the assessment is conducted properly. The reason it's important to test in all areas and have a real comprehensive test is otherwise the schools will be in danger of a procedural violation. And so the lessons to be learned are, these are some school evaluations for autism. ADOS is the most popular one, although it's kind of losing popularity lately. And consider this, whether the student qualifies for an IEP. So practice pointers for schools. And has to be conducted. The IE has to be conducted by a qualified examiner who is not employed by the school. And these are the OSEP letters that talk about parents being entitled to an evaluation. What if your child is qualified for an IEP? Well, you can get a 504 plan, okay? Okay, laws impacting students with ASD. So these are basically the laws. And here's just a quick difference between IDEA and 504. FAPE is provided for by the IDEA 504. And this is how a student is found eligible under 504. They have to have a medical or physical or mental impairment. These are the major life activities. These are the major life functions. And what's included in a 504 plan is, and it has all of these areas in there, how is a child, the IDEA and FAPE doesn't require schools to maximize potential. The problem is that in Raleigh, Amy Raleigh, she performed better than most kids in her grade. I mean, she was really doing well in school. And so it rounds its way all the way up to the Supreme Court, because every circuit in the country had different standards. Andrew F. comes along, and this is a child who's quite severely impacted in school. In the end, it was more than de minimis. There has to be more than de minimis. So what the Supreme Court held was, to meet its substantive obligation of the IDEA, a school must offer an IEP. And so how do you create a meaningful IEP for students? You don't want to use the same IEP goals. You look at the kid's unique circumstances. You have to have a really good present levels and what's reasonably calculated. What do we think the child's going to be able to do? And what does progress appropriate mean? It means meaningful opportunities, appropriately ambitious, chance to make progress in the general education curriculum, closely possible as it can. And again, I said this before, meet during the school year and revise the IEP to address the lack of progress and use positive behavioral interventions and supports. IEPs for students with ASD, you have to address their social skills. Your goals have to be smart, specific, measurable, action, achievable. These are the related services relevant to students with ASD. Almost done. And accommodations could be anything: seating arrangement, extra time. Students with ASD, these are accommodations that you want. You want those fidget toys you may want. So bullying and harassment with autism is being bullied. The school needs to react to that and needs to investigate it. Otherwise, you will be faced with an Office of Civil Rights complaint from the United States Department of Education that the parent files. If the child is the bully, if the child with autism is the bully, then you better get a functional behavior assessment. And here are ways to resolve disputes. These are some of the issues we see. If you're having a problem with a parent school district, you can ask for a facilitated IEP. That, so look, I was a teacher for 18 years. It's not easy. And parents of people with children with disabilities, it's very, it's hard. And so you just kind of have to sometimes understand it, but you don't have to take abuse. And just about having a facilitated IEP, having someone at the school who the parent trusts that the parent could go to. That's all. And just managing expectations. Okay, that's all I have.
Okay, thank you, Hope. That does
Okay.
conclude the session for today. And I hope
Okay.
everyone enjoyed the session. Thank you everyone for participating. You may all disconnect now. Have a great day ahead.
Thank you.